DingDrx.
So what's the proper way to fix a broken in half surfboard? Well, the first thing you have to do is stick the two pieces back together. And the best way to do this is by standing the board up vertically. By standing it up vertically, you're going to use balance to naturally let the two pieces fall back into the exact same position that they were in before the board broke. Don't remove the wax, don't do any sanding or anything like that. Just do a little test run, make sure everything lines up, and then with some pliers or a razor blade, remove all the excess pieces of stringer protruding out of the foam that are going to get in the way. Then, go ahead and mix your 2-part epoxy resin. You want to get a little scale so that you can measure out the portions and get it right. And then mix in some micro balloons to kind of thicken it up. You don't want it too thick, but you don't want it too thin. Add a little bit of color so it matches the rest of the board. Mix it up real good, and then go ahead and apply that to both halves of the board. And then once you got it applied on there, go ahead and smudge it around, make it real nice. And then go ahead and stick those two pieces together and line it up as good as you can. Double check it, quadruple check it, because you only get one shot at this. Then once all your resin is fully cured, it's just going to pop right off. That's why you didn't sand it or take off the wax yet. And then once you're done taking off all that excess resin and everything, you're going to go ahead and get some 40 grit sandpaper. And then now you're ready to sand it and get it ready for filler. Take out all your loose pieces, don't have any sharp edges. And then mix your filler again. And add some more micro balloons. Get it a little bit thicker this time. Add some color to make it so it matches the board as close as you can. And then go ahead and smudge that into those cavities that you created, making it nice and smooth with no low spots. Then the next step after that dries is the jigsaw. You're going to take this jigsaw and you're going to dig out 2 channels next to the stringer, going all the way through the board. Being careful not to cut your stringer. It should look something like this when it's done. Then you're going to take some tape and tape up one of those sides so that the resin doesn't drip through. Then after that, you want to take some thin rope and cut it into sections like this. You want some longer sections and then you want some shorter sections. Then mix your epoxy resin again with just a little bit of micro balloon so it's still pretty liquidy because it's got to soak into that thin rope. Go ahead and pour that into the 2 channels that you dug out. And then with a popsicle stick, you want to go ahead and pack in that fin rope. This is the only time you're going to get popsicle stick inside your board. The rest of the time, keep the popsicle sticks in the popsicles. Once that's dry, go ahead and remove that tape. And now you're ready to sand again. Use your 40 grit sandpaper. Get everything flat, both sides of the board. Take off all the dust. Make it nice and clean. And then get it all set up and ready for lamination. Go ahead and make a line with the black marker at the edge of your sanded line. Notice how I've got a V pattern going on here. This is important. And then tape off your stringer. Use a colored pencil or something to color it brown right there where you did all that work. This is going to make a huge difference and make it look way better, and it only takes like a minute. Now you're ready to put the cloth on there and laminate it. This is when those black lines are going to come in handy because you're going to be able to see where to cut. Now the reason that you do that V cut right there on that cloth is so that the board's flex transitions towards the middle. You don't have an abrupt stiff spot in the middle. And then go ahead and put like another layer on there where you did all that work. This is going to give it extra strength where you need it. Now you're ready to mix your resin, 2-part again. You're not going to put any micro balloons in it this time. You just want it to be clear. Go ahead and mix that up real good and then pour it onto your 4-ounce cloth. And then once you've poured it on there, get a brush and brush it all in real good, making sure there's no dry spots on the cloth and there's no air bubbles or anything like that. And then use a squeegee to get it real nice and flat and get out all the excess resin that you don't need. Make sure your rails are lapped real nice and good, and then go ahead and flip the board over and do the exact same thing on the other side. And you want to try to do this with the same exact batch of epoxy resin that you mix. You don't want to have to mix a separate batch because you want everything to cure together. Then to finish it off, go ahead and cut 2 separate patches and laminate those onto the rails, giving you just that extra bit of strength right where you need it. Now the next step is really important. You want to hang around and kind of babysit this board while that resin is drying because you don't want this resin to fully cure on you. You want to come back when it's almost dry but still a little sticky, and then you're going to go ahead and mix your next batch of epoxy resin. Go ahead and make enough to apply to the top and bottom just like you did when you laminated it. You want this all to cure together. Once you pour it on there, you start brushing it in. Make sure that you brush it all the way to the edge of that black line that you drew. Work it into the cloth real good. Do the top, flip it over, and do the bottom, and then wait a little bit and flip it back over, and then as the board is drying, periodically flip it over back and forth again. This way you won't get drips. Now the hard part is over. The rest is pretty easy. Let the board fully cure, take it outside, get some 60 grit sandpaper, and go ahead and sand everything nice and flat, being real careful not to get thin spots on the edge. Go ahead and do that on both sides, and then finish off with some 60 grit sandpaper in your hand, and this will make sure that everything is really smooth. Get some laminating resin, mix it up with some surfacing agent, also known as waxing agent. Mix it real good, pour it on the board, spread it around with your brush. Try to make the outside edges a little bit thinner than the middle. Use the brush to get it nice and flat and smooth and even, and then take it outside, let it dry, and then do the same thing on the other side. Be sure to brush all your resin all the way to the edge of the sanded line, and don't miss any spots. You want to make sure everything's got complete coverage on there. And then once that's all done, let it sit in the sun and fully cure, and then you're ready to do your finished sanding. Start with some 60 grit. Go ahead and flatten everything out, being careful not to get thin spots towards the edge. Do the same thing on both sides. And then move up to a 150 grit and remove all the scratches from the 60 grit. And then once that's done, get some 220 grit and remove all the scratches from the 150 grit. And then your board's done. Look at this thing. A little bit of scars, but nothing some paint can't fix. Look at that. Now she's looking sick. Ready to go. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it DingDrx style, the proper way. Thanks for watching.